here. I am very excited to be among my tribe here. You guys are awesome. How many of you are in sales? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Is there anyone here not in sales? I just wanted to double check that I was in the right room. You're in sales. You just don't know it yet. So, as Phil so eloquently put it, my name is Carrie Zumas, and I am a breakthrough coach. And what I love to do is help people switch their mindset. So today we're going to talk about some things that will be absolutely critical to you becoming more successful in your current business. Now, many of us do some of the things that I'm going to talk about naturally, but some of us don't really know how to teach it. Now, how many of you would love to be able to teach people in our lives how to communicate better with us? I know it would be very helpful for the parents in the room. I'm going to start out by telling you a little story about a friend of mine named Dominic. You guys might have heard this story before. Dominic was involved in a situation where there were about to become massive floods in his area, and they evacuated his area, and they said, everyone must leave. And Dominic said, you know what, I've got the right attitude. I prayed on this, and I know that God is going to take care of me, so I am not evacuating. I'm not leaving. So the rain started to come, and it got really, really scary. It got dark and dismal, and it looked like the rain wasn't going to let up. So they sent buses for those holdouts. They said, please get on the bus. We need to leave now because the waters are going to take over and the houses are going to slide into the ocean. It's not a good place to be. Well, Dominic said, I'm all good. I'm set. Got my mind in the right place. I prayed, and I know God's going to take care of me. Well, once it got to the point that his whole first floor was flooded, they actually sent some boats. I don't know if you guys remember a few years back when they did that in South River, but they sent some boats, and they stopped at Dominic's house, and they said, Dominic, you're hanging out of the second floor window. I think you really should just get in the boat. And he said, no, I'm all set. I've got the right mindset. God's going to take care of me. It's all good. Well, his house went under, and he was standing on the roof, and like one of those little helicopter rescue things came by and said, Dominic, would you be kind enough to get into the helicopter? They dropped the ladder and they said, please help us help you get on the plane. And he said, no, I am standing on my belief. God is going to take care of me. And so after Dominic drowned, he went to heaven and said, God, what happened? You didn't take care of me. I believed in you. I had the right attitude. And guess what? They said to him, Dominic, we sent you a bus. Dominic, we sent you a boat. Dominic, we sent you a helicopter. And guess what? You didn't take any of our help. So my question to you is it important to have a good mindset? Absolutely. But it's even more important to take action. So would you guys repeat after me? I am not a Dominic. I am not a Dominic. Outstanding. It's a good way to start the morning. So what I like talking about is the mindset factor. You'll notice on this slide that what ends up happening is when the mind gets information that's incongruent with its belief system, its core belief system, the first thing it does is shut down. So that's a really key thing to know when you're working with clients, that if something that you're telling them doesn't match with their core beliefs, they just basically say no. Have you ever been in that situation where you have the perfect house for someone or the perfect product for someone, and they say no, and you're just like, I don't get it. It's everything that they wanted, right? But clearly, we're missing the boat somewhere. We're missing the boat somewhere on what it is that's not congruent with their core beliefs. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. We all have great thoughts, like Dominic, but we also know that actions is what are going to drive our success. So it's great to be positive, but you don't want to have passive productivity. You want to have purposeful action. We are what we repeatedly do. So guess what, guys? Excellence is a habit. And what I want to talk to everyone about today, before we get into all the nitty-gritty communication stuff, is about habit. How we bookend our day is going to be critical to our success. So I want to start with the daily mindset. What we do when we first wake up in the morning. How many of you have morning routines that you participate in right now? Awesome. How many of you don't know what a morning routine is? You're just like, is that the brushing the teeth and taking the shower part? Yeah, a lot of us don't know. So I would like to encourage you guys to take on some of these different tools that we work with in my coaching. The first is when you wake up, and I know some of you don't want anything until you had your cup of coffee, but this is a different kind of silence, okay? You want to start your day in silence and really thinking and meditating if you're willing to meditate. If you're not a meditator, try a priming exercise where you do some deep breathing. I think that's another really critical thing. Many of us are shallow breathers. Have you ever noticed that? You're just like, oh my God, I don't think I had a breath all day. Like really, you're like up here. Now take a moment. Let's take a deep breath and see how different we feel. In through the nose, hold for 3 seconds, out through your mouth. Don't you feel different? I know some of us are going to cough, like we're getting over colds. It's cool. I had the flu, so I understand. Gratitude, intention, and journaling. For me, mornings begin after my meditation, after my breathing, and today it was kind of crazy because at 3 a.m. I added something to this presentation, so that didn't really count as my morning prep, so I had to go back and do my morning prep. But when you think about it, when we're grateful, it's very hard for anyone to get us off our game. If you think about the importance of gratitude, did you know that you cannot be grateful and angry at the same time? Did you know that? Try it. Have you ever been in a situation where you're just like, I can't get a hold of my anger. I'm so frustrated. Replace it with something that you're grateful for. Or do we all have something that we're grateful for? I mean, we live in a free country and most of us have a roof over our heads and we have food. If not normally, we have it today. And it's great to start with gratitudes. For me, I use a gratitude journal. I was using a paper journal and then I started using an electronic journal for gratitudes. But then it was very tempting to look at my phone, which we're going to talk about in a minute. When you're talking about, what you do in the morning, having a good stretch. Some of us do a whole exercise routine. Some of us might do some yoga. But for me, even if it's just a stretch, which by the way, when I parked my car before, I was out there doing some stretching because I said, you don't want to be tight like this when you're meeting with people because your energy changes when you've had a chance to stretch and to move and to exercise. Your energy is what sells you to people immediately. Have you ever noticed that you meet someone and you're like, I just like that person? And you don't even know why you like that person. You're just like, I don't know, I like this person, but I don't know why I like this person. It has everything to do with energy. We're all made up of energy. And if we're vibrating high, people want to be around us. And what better tool for sales than to have people that want to be around us? Would you agree with that? Yep. So let's talk about raising our vibration. This is my favorite tool that I use in my coaching, my absolute favorite tool. If you get nothing today but this could absolutely change your life. And it is called the brain dump. When I wake up in the morning, after I've had my moment of silence, after I've done some stretching, done some deep breathing, after I do all of that, now this is critical, before I look at my email, before I check my text messages, before I get on Facebook, the time suck, okay? Before I do that, I do the brain dump. And how do you do a brain dump? You simply get a blank piece of paper and you dump everything that's here on that piece of paper. You do that before you start getting emails that have to be attended to. Because either the day will run you or you will run the day. And I know many of us at the end of the day, we're like, I got nothing done. I don't know what happened. And I know that when we're in a commission business, there's nothing worse than looking at the end of the day and saying, I ran around, I dealt with everybody else's emergencies, but I never got to do the important things that matter to me. The brain dump, the mind dump, allows you to create a blueprint of your day before other people's emergencies take over. So how does that work? You simply dump everything. And I don't mean just business. I mean dump everything. If you need to pick up dry cleaning, if you need to get an extra screw for the thing that fell off of your wall, if you need to do something for your business, whatever it is you need to do, you want to have it all on that piece of paper, and then you create your blueprint for the day. When you're creating the blueprint, you want to put a little asterisk by the things you know you can do today. Because if it's all in your head, what ends up happening to us is we're so clogged that we don't know where to start, and guess what happens to a mind that is overflowing? It shuts down. How many of us have said, you know what, maybe I'll just watch an hour of TV? It's happened to me. The worst is my brother gave me his Netflix. I'm like, don't do this. Because Netflix is a time suck. I mean, let's be honest. If you can watch 64 episodes of something in like straight through without, it's crazy. Anyway, but you want to make sure that you run your day and the blueprint is yours. The next thing we're going to talk about is your mental prep. Now, we talked about Dominic, we made a little joke, but your mindset is very, very valuable. And how we control our mindset is by what we put into it in our mind, through our ears, and through our body language with ourselves. I know it sounds a little crazy. Some of you might have seen me doing this before, but I do power posing. Has anyone ever heard of power posing? What do you think that is? Anyone want to take a guess?
Looking at yourself in the mirror.
this.
There you go. I like that one. That was excellent. Power posing is like a superhero pose. Does anyone know a superhero that they like? Shout one out.
Wonder Woman.
Okay, what's Wonder Woman's pose? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No,
I was out, did anyone see me as I was running? I had to go park my car and I was just like, do my Wonder Woman pose. Who remembers Mighty Mouse? Here I come to save the day, right? And you know, like the old Muscle Man one, and there's so many great power poses, but this is who? Come on, who is this?
Superman.
Yeah, Superman. He's also this,
I thought you
but
liked
he's
her.
definitely this. So I want you guys to pick a power pose right now. You don't even have to stand up. You can do it right in your chair, and I want you to hold it for 10 seconds. Ready? Go. Take some deep breaths while you're doing it. 10 seconds. 10 seconds on your power pose. Are you posing?
That's not appropriate.
Okay, you can relax. Do you feel any different?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you my favorite power pose. Are you ready? This is my favorite. This is the standing ovation. I practice this in the bathroom. And when I get up there, I know I'm going to get a standing ovation. It's outstanding. Guys, before you go into an appointment, if you do a power pose, you're going to be so much more effective because you've changed your state, you've changed your physiology. And it's something simple that you don't have to do anything, you don't have to do jumping jacks and go crazy. You could simply do what I did. I sat in the car and did my Wonder Woman deflection. You know, I did. Do a little power posing like this, do a little bit of my standing ovation, and I'm good to go. I have to use the bathroom beforehand because I want to do my standing ovation. I want to come here and have energy for you. Don't you want to have that type of energy for the people that you engage with every single day? Do you think you could use that tool?
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you guys if you use the tool and it's helped you, because I know for myself it's very powerful. I actually have theme songs. Anyone here have a theme song? Okay. Generally, what's your theme song?
This girl's on fire.
I love it. So here's the thing. You could play it before an appointment, and it puts you in that, especially when you've got a lot of competition out there. We all know we have competition. So you got to play that theme song, and if you can't, you can play it in your head, right? Because as soon as she said that, God bless you, it was immediately, this girl is not, we're all like ready, we're singing it. I have one, Life Will Never Be the Same by Hadaway, which I'm dating myself now because they're from the 80s. But I have that, and when I do big speaking gigs, my DJs play that as I'm walking on the stage because that's my theme song. That brings me right there. But in my power pose, I'm playing it in my head, you know? And I think it's really valuable to have something like that. What that does is it creates an anchor. The music, the pose, what you say to yourself, it creates an anchor so that you move on with your day. Now, I know there's people in here that have read and have heard that laughter is the best medicine and all of these different things. All of this changes your body, your state, your physiology. This is my best thing that I added. I added this 2 days ago. I finished an amazing book called The Big Leap. Anyone read that book? The Big Leap? It's a great book by Gay Hendricks. In this book, they talked a lot about working within your zone of genius. And I have always said that the most important thing we can do when we're doing IPAs, income-producing activities, is to work and operate within our zone of genius. It is very easy to get distracted by things that we're not great at, okay? For example, I know how valuable social media is. It is very valuable. Would you agree with that? But what is more valuable? putting a post on Facebook, or picking up the phone and following up with someone who came to an open house?
Picking up the phone call.
Okay, but what do we end up getting sucked into?
Facebook.
Because we're not always operating in our zone of genius. Top producers have one thread, common thread, in every field, and that is that they operate within their zone of genius 80% of the time. 80% of the time, they know what makes them the most money, and it's generally a top 3 things. So for people out there, real estate, mortgage, what would you say are the top 3 things that make you money? Someone give me something. Yes?
Building relationships,
Relationship building with?
clients, people that can refer me business.
There you go. Anyone else?
Organization that we get.
Like the mind dump and setting your day. Okay. Anyone else? Prospecting. That's the one I was really looking for. I have to be honest, Gene, I love that one. Prospecting is the number 1 thing in any field that requires you to get paid. Right? Prospecting. Because when you're prospecting, you're operating in your zone of genius. You're able to shine. And if prospecting and working with people isn't within your zone of genius, are you ready? You're in the wrong business. I'm not going to lie to you. If that's not, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Many of us start in one field, and then we start recognizing what our zone of genius is, and we move to another field, and there's no shame in that. Guys, I was a top producing realtor for over 25 years, okay? My zone of genius is in training. I recognized it when I was so young. I was 19 years old and I was waitressing at my family's restaurant, and I was training head waitresses, and it was my favorite thing to do. When I got into real estate, I was a mentor for 17 years. I loved it. I built a network marketing company. First thing I did was create a school that taught training for them. Guess what? I recognized my zone of genius. I just didn't know what it was called. And that's why I do what I do now. I was good at what I did, but my zone of genius is this. So I encourage you, I invite you to find your zone of genius and spend 80% of your time on that. And don't allow yourself to get sidetracked. The power of 3 and the focus 15. The power of 3, generally speaking, we already said, what is our top 3 things that bring us our income? And you want to spend a focus 15 minutes at a clip when you're working on it. Sometimes we need to get up and move around. So how many of you have done these courses that are like, okay, from 9 to 12, you're going to cold call? Remember those courses? I know I graduated from a few of them. And you're not supposed to move until you get your 3 bona fide appointments, yada, yada, yada. Guess what? The brain doesn't work that way because the mind can only absorb as much as the butt can endure. And it's the truth. So you need to be able to move around. So you do a focus 15, you get up, you walk across the room, you sit back down, and you do another focus 15. My favorite is to actually use timers. I do use timers when I do that, which I think is the next thing. I use timers and I keep an accountability. I actually track my calendar to make sure that 80% of my time is spent on income producing activities. And the other 20%, it's great to set yourself in motion. I know I learned a lot from you on automatically setting up my Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, because once you spend that time on that, you don't have to spend more than 20 minutes of your time on something that isn't going to give you money today, but will build relationships for you in the future. So if you haven't already met with this young lady, you should. She's phenomenal. Bookending your day. So the beginning of the day starts like that. How does the day end? Well, your evening routine. I want you guys to breathe before you go to bed. Take a few minutes, take some deep breaths. And when you do, let go of whatever happened in the day, because tomorrow's another day. Don't go to bed beating yourself up. Don't go to bed saying, oh, I've got so much on my plate, blah, blah, blah. Take a few moments to breathe, relax, and allow yourself to review and reflect. Allow yourself to be able to say, okay, maybe I didn't do everything I wanted to do. So of the things that were in my mind dump that I said I was going to do, how many of them are important and how many can I delegate? Because delegation is very important for top producers. Delegation of the things that really aren't important or that you really hate to do. I recently had a conversation with someone. I was trying to build my own website. I'm not bad at it, okay? But it's not my zone of genius, and it's not going to bring me the money. So guess what? I broke down, I hired someone. And it was a big relief. It was on my to-do list for months. And I dreaded it. How many of you have things on your to-do list that you dread doing? Delegate, hire it out. You can't afford not to. Setting your intention for the next day. So once you reviewed, you reflected, you set an intention for the very next day. Again, bookend your day with gratitude. You can't really go to bed angry, upset, frustrated if you stop and you talk about what you're grateful for. I think about the fact that there was a terrible rumor flying around in our high school last night. We got a call from the principal at 11 o'clock at night. And it was because it was a different Monroe in another state that had gotten a threat of a school shooting. And it was very scary. And when we got the call, some people went on Facebook and like, I can't believe they called us at 11 o'clock, oh, this and that. And all I said was, I am so grateful that there's nobody threatening to shoot up our school. Like, you need to find that gratitude. So I went to bed with a very clear conscience. Of course, I woke up at 3 o'clock because I thought of something else I want to talk to you guys about today. No electronics at night. Okay, I know this is a painful one. How many of you sleep with your phone right next to your head? And it's there all night.
Not next to the head.
Well, it's nightstand. It is very tempting, especially if you're like me and you get up in the middle of the night because you think of something else you want to add to your presentation. And you jump up at 3 and you go downstairs and you start typing on the computer. But I don't do that anymore. Now I just have a piece of paper and I write things down and I go back to bed. Guys, if you're tempted and you have the phone next to you, when you wake up in the morning, you won't do your morning routine. You'll end up in a time suck of looking at emails and looking at text messages. Guess what? Bill Gates and all of these other people, like Mark Zuckerberg, they are not checking their email at 6 a.m. when they get up. They are running their own day. So I invite you to do what they do. See, they know that once you get in there, you're just going to stay on there. And your day is ruined. So many of us end up getting depressed, frustrated. I didn't even know about the tragedy until much, much later than everybody else because I have a steel trap mind on what has to get done. And I think that that's a big value to you guys, and I want to impart that to you because for years I let the day run me. I was like, okay, what's today's emergency? What's the fire I have to put out today? And that's no way to live. When you go to sleep at night, you want to make sure that you take the time to visualize your projected outcome for the next day. Visualize what a great day will look like for you. I make 10 phone calls, 6 people want to meet with me, 3 of them are going to list with me, right? These are great visualizations. And the subconscious mind does not know the difference between that which is real and that which is vividly imagined. So if you're able to do that, what ends up happening is you're setting and sending out to the universe what you want. And for those of you that know about the law of attraction, you will attract what you visualize and meditate on the most. And if you're thinking about what you don't want, that's what you're going to get. Right?
Correct.
A lot of us know that. I think that was the last one of that. Okay, so this is the fun thing. I love talking. This is what I added at 3 o'clock this morning. Isn't that funny? I was thinking about the sales process. Now, all of us know that there's a process to closing a sale. The first part is you build rapport, right? Second part, you get some questions. You start to, within your rapport, you have some questions that you're dealing with. And you establish a need, and you link the need to your product or service, right? So you're meeting their needs, and you're going to close asking for the order, right? That's the cycle of a sale. And in the middle of all that, you have to overcome objections, yes?
Yes.
Here's the thing that I noticed. This is what kept me up last night when I was thinking about it. Because again, I was a realtor for a really long time, and I said, I just want to give you guys something extra. And this is my extra. Most of us know the link and the close and the objection handling techniques. That's the stuff we're taught technically. Would you agree with that? We're taught how to ask for the order. We're taught how to overcome objections. We're taught how to close. And if you haven't been taught that, I also provide that service. You let me know. But that's where most of us, when we're in mentoring situations and training, how often do we spend our lion's share of time knowing how to do that? But guess what? You will never get there if you don't know how to build rapport and really get to the heart of what your customer wants. If you really get to the heart of what they're thinking, you're going to be speaking their language, which is why I studied neuro-linguistic programming and became a practitioner, Phil. All that really is understanding how people communicate, how they receive information, and how you can be able to get through to them in a way that makes sense to your client. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's really what I do. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. Step one, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on this because I think it's the most important piece, is building rapport. How do you build rapport? Well, the first thing is you want to take a genuine interest in someone else. If I don't have a genuine interest in you and I'm just like, so tell me about yourself, and you're waiting to say how great you are, that's trying to be interesting when in reality you need to be interested. And you truly want to get to know the person. The key word here is genuine. You need a genuine interest in other people. I will tell you that I met a lot of you guys at one time, and it was like a quick rush. But I encourage you guys to do one-on-ones with each other and really get to know about the other person. Also, when you're in a group like this, get to know the people that are your sponsors. Get to know your strategic partners. Get to know other realtors. Because it's great practice in having the skill set to build rapport. Does that make sense? The second part is you want to be very curious about how they think, how they operate. You see, we assume that everybody thinks, operates, and processes exactly like us. And once text messaging became part of reality, we learned really fast that not everybody thinks exactly like we do. That's not what I meant at all. Why is she saying that? How many times does that happen to you? And you're like, I don't understand. It's very clear to me what I said and what I meant, and it's always not very clear. It's why I like to hold down the thing and do the message texting, so you actually hear my voice and my inflection. Being willing to see the world from another person's point of view. One of the biggest things I learned about 17 years ago, I took a course, probably in a group like this, on cross-cultural communication. And it was very interesting because you start to realize that not everyone sees the view of the world the way you do. Not everyone was raised the way you were. Not everyone has the same belief system. And remember at the first slide, I said, if something is incongruent with their core belief, they want to push it away. Have you ever been in a situation? Again, I found this person everything that they wanted, and I couldn't close the sale. Why? Because it was incongruent to their belief system. Something in my communication rubbed them wrong. And don't take it personally, because you can always gain this skill. I'm going to work with you guys on this today. Rapport is more about what you do with your body and your voice than it is on the words that you use. I know we've spent countless hours on dialogue, right? Listing presentations, saying just the right thing, closing techniques, saying just the right thing, and in reality, only about 7% of what they're receiving is coming from your content. Even me today, only about 7% of what I'm telling you is getting through to you. You know what's getting through to you? I'm relating to you in a language that you understand because you feel a simpatico with me. Would you agree with that? I'm like, yeah, I think she knows what she's talking about. I can relate to her. She's comfortable. Her tonality is confident. She's able to bring energy to the people that she's talking to. This is the stuff that builds rapport and trust. So how do you do that? Part of it is being conscious of the people that you're dealing with and watching how they behave and being able to model a pattern of what they're doing. What do I mean by that? Well, you want to be cognizant of people's breathing when you're around them. Again, shallow breathing, deep breathing. You want to be cognizant of motion. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's just like very jumpy and you're just like, oh my God, I wish this person would stop shaking their leg and sitting still, right? You really have to be aware of that. Their body, you want to be aware of, where they hold themselves when they're sitting, when they're standing, are they leaning in? And you also want to be thinking about where is their mind. Now, I'm going to tie this all together by talking a little bit about what we talk about in neuro-linguistic programming as pacing and leading. This is critical, guys. Meet with a customer the first time, right? You will only be able to control the situation and the outcome if you spend the time to actually pace with them. So if you're maybe sitting back, right? Sitting back, I'm relaxed with you, I'm talking with you, and I'm trying to be more like where you are, tonality, physiologically, and then I can start leading. but you can't lead until you pace. It's kind of like dancing. Have you ever danced with someone and they didn't, like, you don't really know the person? The first thing you do in a dancing situation is you're pacing with them, right? All right, let's see what this guy's doing. Is he gonna, okay, all right, he's gonna move like this. All right, okay, I can do this. And then you can kind of lead because you've got the pace, right? And that's really what it is in any type of situation where you're dealing with a person. And I will tell you, children are great at pacing and leading. I'll take them at the end, I promise.
Okay.
Only because I have to be cognizant of the time, because I only have a certain amount of time here. Okay, so building rapport. Along with that comes matching and mirroring. So we talked a little bit about trying to pace and lead, but here's the thing. So we're sitting together, and I'm using him as an example because he's a friend, and he's sitting just like this. Don't move, you're fine. If I want to match him, I can kind of, cross my legs slowly. You don't want to look like Simon Says. And, drop my hands and, cock my head how his is. Or you can do the mirroring, which is kind of like the opposite. So maybe I'll lean this way, cross this leg, okay? It seems like a silly thing, but what happens is the person starts to feel aligned with you. And matching and mirroring has been proven time and again to work really well. Matching and mirroring isn't just the body language, it's also the tonality. Again, if you're sitting with someone, how many of you have ever had a one-on-one with me? I know some of you have, but when we've met one-on-one, had coffee, you'll notice that if you're leaning in, eventually I'm leaning in, right? And we start with the pacing and leading, the tonality, right? You know, because she's watched me do it. And you really start to take over that person's way, and that's how you learn their view of the world. It's how you learn what makes them comfortable. People really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's been thrown out there since Tom Hopkins' days. But what does it actually mean? It means that they have to feel something on a visceral level that you relate to them and understand them. And it's not going to come with words. It's not going to come with, trust me, I'm going to do the best thing for you. It's going to come from the fact that we're in conversation and you're like, I like this person. I trust this person. And you don't always know where it comes from, but I'm here to tell you it has a lot to do with your communication, through your body language, your tonality, your state. Your power posing is very, very important because people will want to be around you and they won't even know why. It's awesome. Communicating effectively, you also want to try to figure out how does a person process. Now, everyone in this room, there are 5 senses that we take in information. We take things in visually, we take things in auditory, kinesthetically, which is our body. We also take things in olfactory, our sense of smell, and gustatory, which is our taste. But we're not licking any of our clients, and hopefully not sniffing around them. So today we're going to really spend our time on visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. For example, if someone is visual, and these are what, I don't want to get too deep here, but these are the eye accessing cues that if you watch somebody in conversation, you'll be able to figure out when you ask them to tell you something, like, oh, tell me how long you've been in this relationship, or, oh, how long have you worked in that job? Generally, when people start talking about themselves, their eyes are going to move in one of those ways. They're either going to look up, whether they're constructing or remembering, it doesn't matter. If they're looking up, which I'm very visual, you'll notice I look up a lot. You'll be able to know, hey, this is a visual person. So when you've got a visual client, guess what happens? You have to show them visuals. They have to see things in black and white. You ever notice that when some people are just like, oh, just tell me, I get very confused. Those are your auditory people. So when you're looking at people that are auditory, they tend to look from side to side when you ask them to explain things to you because they're trying to remember the sounds. And if you're looking down, they're much more into the feeling. They have to feel a certain thing. They're the people who are like, listen, I'll know the house when I walk into the house. And they're not kidding. It comes from feeling. So another thing you can do, the cues are great with the eye accessing cues, but sometimes we're on the phone and we can't see their eyes, correct? So how do we figure that out? We want to listen to their words, their predicates. If someone is visual, it's all about how they see the world. It's all about, I see what you mean. They say things like, I'm looking closely into this. Show me what you mean. Oh, I have like a hazy recollection. Those are visual predicates. And when you start to, you can actually Google visual predicates and you'll get like the list. So it's not a problem. You don't have to like know them all offhand now. Auditory is how people hear the world. They'll say things like, oh, that rings a bell, right? They'll say things like, it's music to my ears. The place was buzzing with excitement. We're on the same wavelength. They use descriptive words. Now, we're going to use all of them, but you'll find that these people who process this way, they'll use them more often. And kinesthetic is the feel the worlds. I feel it in my bones. There was tension in the air. The pressure was tremendous. And I love this one. The project is up and running. Now, it's really funny because I am mostly visual, but I'm partially kinesthetic. So earlier I was like, I have to run to the bathroom. I remember which one of you guys said, walk, it's much safer. Was that you, Terry? Okay, thank you. Walk, it's much safer, Carrie. I'm like, okay. But communication, it's really important that we start to realize that not everyone processes the way we process. So if you're visual and you're all about charts and graphs and you're not closing as many sales as you'd like to, start to really cue in and say, maybe this person needs to hear certain words. And I will tell you, when you start giving them back the words they use, they're going to feel like you're hearing them, understanding them, feeling them, seeing what they're all about. Use their words back to them. So if I said to you, I'm looking for an enormous backyard, and you say to me, I can get you a huge yard. Well, what is huge to me and what is enormous to him, right? So you want to use that person's word. If someone says, I want an enormous yard, say, I'm going to find you an enormous yard. It sounds so silly and simple, but it is huge. It really is. It's one of those things where people do not feel heard because what your predicates and descriptors are different than theirs. Make sense? How many of you guys think you learned something exciting today? This is pretty cool stuff, right? I studied this for a long time and I love it. The other part of communication is really important, perspective. Perspective is huge. Okay, now, take a look at this. You've got this elephant. Even if you can't read what it says, I'll tell you. You got this elephant. If you're looking at this elephant and you're trying to figure out what you're looking at, it's all about your perspective. So from this perspective, it looks like a tree. From this perspective, the tail looks like a rope. It could be a wall if you're just looking at this portion of it. And people realize that what they see from where they stand, okay? It's all on where they're looking at it, where their part of the world is. The other part of it is, like, look at this poor fish. This guy is saying it's definitely half empty because he can't breathe. This fish is nose in, and he's like, oh, you're such a pessimist. Well, he's really not a pessimist. He can't breathe because he's tail in. The other guy's head in. And I know these are funny, but they're so true. Many times we look at things from our perspective, and we don't relate to the people that we most want to relate to because we don't look at their perspective. We don't usually see things as they are. We tend to see things as